This is a 2016 BMW i8, a cool, underrated, futuristic, spaceship-looking sports car that is now a value buy. You see, new, the BMW i8 would have set you back over $140,000, but now they can be had for significantly less than that. And for the money, the performance and technology you get in these cars is just incredible, not to mention the styling, of course. But before I dive into those details, first, I want to tell you that this car is for sale. It features just 22,000 original miles, and it was owned by the owner of Ultimate Auto Works, a BMW specialty shop here in the Scottsdale, Arizona area, so of course it has a well-documented service history as well. You can find this car heading up for auction on Bring a Trailer, where it will be selling with no reserve as offered from Casio Motors. The first place we have to start is the background and the powertrain, because as a technologically advanced, performance-oriented, forward-looking plug-in hybrid sports car, it's kind of the same thing. Now, first I want to talk about what on earth is the BMW i8. Well, the i-Series, as we know it today, is the all-EV lineup of BMWs, but it started here with the BMW i8, and the i8 actually debuted with another BMW called the BMW i3, which is the more mundane, egg-shaped, all-EV daily driver commuter car that they expected to sell as a volume car. And for most manufacturers, the i3 would have been where they stopped. They would have built a luxury car or a commuter car like the i3, offered it to the public as their cool technology experiment, and called it a day. But BMW didn't stop there. They built the i8, and the i8 is kind of the fun science project, the what if we really pushed the technology to its limit and used it in something like a plug-in hybrid sports car. And that's exactly what they gave us here. But what it took to get here, as you see here, the production version, took a while in several different iterations of the BMW i8. First, I want to talk about the styling. The styling itself went through several different iterations before finally arriving on something that was more like what you see here. But this car looks like a spaceship as it sits, especially as a performance sports car. But then at that, as we know, and every time we see cool concept cars, we expect them to be toned down. They usually simplify them to make it easier to actually produce in a factory, and so more times the street car is not nearly as exciting as the concept, and yet this car looks just like the concept car. In fact, so much so, the forward-looking spaceship design means all these years later, folks that aren't totally familiar with these cars will see these and assume that it's something that has yet to be released, or is some brand new BMW that costs $200,000 or $300,000, when in fact it's actually several years old at this point and can be bought at a bargain value price. And so for that, the styling of this car is just incredible, and it has some really cool details I'll show you as we dive into the specifics of the exterior. But the next place that we have to talk about is the powertrain. And this is a plug-in hybrid, whereas the i-Series, for the most part, this is the only exception really, are all EVs. This is a plug-in hybrid, and it's a performance-oriented plug-in hybrid. It has both EV and gas power, which can be used independently, or that can be used together to be even more efficient. The first thing we should talk about is the gas powertrain. It's actually here in the back, in a rear mid-mounted supercar-like or high-performance sports car powertrain orientation, and it's a transverse mounted B38, a turbocharged 1.5-liter 3-cylinder that on its own is good for about 228 horsepower, and it's paired with a 6-speed automatic transmission, which sends power to the rear wheels. Well, that seems pretty straightforward, but 228 horsepower doesn't seem like nearly enough power for a car that looks like this. Well, fortunately, there's also a hybrid powertrain, and the way they did that is they added a battery pack here in the middle, where there might be a drivetrain in some all-wheel drive cars, and then up here in the front there's an electric motor mounted on the front axle, which means that this car is equipped with part-time all-wheel drive, using the gas motor for the rear wheels and the electric motor for the front wheels. It can kick in for better performance, or in traction loss situations to give you all-wheel drive, or just use the rear wheels and be a little bit more efficient that way in normal driving conditions, which I think is all really, really cool from a technological perspective. In fact, that technology is what you'll find in use today from a lot of manufacturers. Most hybrids and plug-in hybrids use this exact setup, including the Corvette E-Ray, for this technology layout, which is very, very interesting. The other cool part is it gave you EV-only range. This thing can drive on just EV power up to 75 miles per hour, give or take about 20 or 23 miles of range when fully charged. But of course, you can drive also on gas-only power and get around 28 to 29 miles per gallon, or combined, you get up to 370 miles of range, which is very, very respectable for this car, but isn't limited to the EV-only or the gas-only power, which makes it a really, really cool car in that sense. But the hidden aspect is the performance. On paper, you get a combined 357 horsepower, about 129 from the electric motor, 228 from the gas engine, and that's not a ton of power, but this car is relatively lightweight thanks to its construction of composite and aluminum materials, and therefore it's actually really fast, but it's also deceptively fast. It's 0 to 60 in about 4 seconds with a limited top speed of 155 miles per hour. But where that might surprise you is that this car is significantly faster than way more powerful cars. And the way it does that is by, first of all, it has an all-wheel drive system, something which normally adds a lot of weight to normal cars, but doesn't because of the lack of drive shafts in this car, which means it gets a fantastic launch in regular road driving, and it's always going to have great traction. But on top of that, with the electric motor, electric motors always have all of their power and torque, which means you have instantly all of that 129 horsepower available, and while the gas motor is working through its gears and working through its revs to make peak power, you have this constant 129 horsepower, which means you always have plenty of power available in this car. Or in other words, all of your power is more usable than you would find in other more powerful cars, which means even today, this car will beat a lot of newer cars that are more powerful, and it's just an incredible value bargain while also being actually relatively fuel efficient for a sports car that looks like this. But the backstory is incredible for how we got the BMW i8. Next, I want to give you a closer look at the exterior, but first I want to show you the key. This is the i8 key. It's a very slim, compact form factor here that can easily fit in your pocket or maybe even potentially your wallet. And what you have here is unlock at the top, lock here for the BMW button, and in this cool little outline of an i8 is your rear hatch pop or your trunk. You also have a panic button and the option to remove a physical key in the event that the actual key fob battery dies. But keyless entry with a very slim form factor that would be very easy to carry around, and it looks pretty cool too, I think. Now, moving on to the car itself, this particular car is a GigaWorld car, which was an optional package that comes with cool additional features and cool additional accents and stylistic options. Notably, what I think is pretty cool on this car is that the GigaWorld package also adds the LED with cornering lights package, meaning these lights can actually help light corners while turning, for example, at night, sort of leading the car to make it a little bit safer to drive, which I think is a pretty cool technology add-on. The other cool part for this particular car is that it's finished in this protonic blue metallic. This is one of the better colors for the car because it just contrasts so beautifully to the existing colors on the car. These cars came with the frozen gray accents like you see here on the front grille, but then also lots of black used throughout the vehicle. And so this blue adds a very nice contrasting color so you can really see all of the cool elements of this spaceship. Now with that, let's dive into some of the specifics. Obviously, this is a coupe that happens to have a 2+2 arrangement that I will show you once we get to the interior section. But then starting in the front here, it has a very, very low silhouette. You can see just how low the headlights are on this car. And what's also interesting, as a plug-in hybrid and let alone a mid-engine car, the engine's not in the front. And so the front grille here is actually kind of closed off, but yet they still gave you the sort of basic resemblance of a grille so that it wouldn't look totally weird for the time. EVs were not totally mainstream by this point in car production, and so I think this was an element that BMW did to make the car seem less spacey and futuristic and still look somewhat like a normal BMW. You can also see it's got a front camera and plenty of parking sensors, all sorts of cool airflow and technology throughout the vehicle as well. The BMW badge here in the center, and then even those LED headlights that of course have these very cool DRLs or daytime running lights. Another interesting feature is that in the front here, you can clearly see with the way the body lines are, there's essentially a frunk here, but there's not actually a frunk because underneath, this is where all of the EV battery technology is stored. And so BMW doesn't actually give you access to this. This is something only meant to be accessed by BMW technicians, and so it's kind of off limits. But what's cool is that it has this big intake vent in it. So obviously, just like a gas engine, electronics can get hot. And so this is something that was added as a heat extractor, if you will, to help draw out air of the electric motor and battery system here in the front of the vehicle, and it just makes it look a little bit more sporty and aggressive as well. As you come around to the side of the vehicle, we also have these very cool wheels, part of the Giga World package as well. They just give a very nice premium look to it. But while we're down here, I want to point out some of the cool characteristics of these wheels and even the technology underneath the car. The car features fully independent suspension with a multi-link setup in the rear, and it even features adaptive suspension that can be adjusted based on the driver's inputs for the actual vehicle's performance. On top of that, it also features four-wheel regenerative braking. So not only are these very cool drilled rotors, of course, performance oriented, but when you put the car in the sports mode, you can actually regen plenty of battery power when you're driving it in the canyons and fun sporty instances. As you continue down the car, you can see the wipers are kind of cleverly hidden. A lot of the beautiful composite and aluminum bodywork looks very stylish. Even the mirrors, for example, just look very cool and futuristic. But then here they went for a very interesting approach. You can actually see some of the exposed sort of carbon composite that was used in the construction of this vehicle to maintain the relatively light weight. On top of that, you also had all sorts of cool aero. Here in the back, the way everything tapers and splits, you can see the airflow that actually goes between these two pieces here, but then also below the car, a similar experience, almost like a Formula One car in terms of how a lot of this technology was derived. The other cool part is the doors. You access them here with an electronic door latch, and once you open them, you can of course see on the inside more of that composite in the door, but then you also have just cool car doors. And nothing is cooler than pulling up a car that looks like a spaceship and then having cool dihedral or butterfly doors as well to get out of the vehicle. So all of that, again, just adding to the cool factor of this car. As we continue to the rear, that is the filler for the gas nozzle. You have the EV filler on the front, and then in the back, you have, again, crazy stylistic elements. You have a rear hatch. This is actually going to be your main form of storage for using the vehicle practically. You can open it here using the key fob. It lifts open, and you can actually lift open your hatch. Now, obviously, part of this hatch, this section in particular here in the back, is obviously your gas engine, and so that's why your space is limited in this section. But you do have a window to, of course, see back and separate the gas engine compartment or the trunk compartment from the actual interior. But on top of that, you have this. If you go ahead and open this, this is essentially your trunk space. It's not the largest space on the planet, but you get additional trunk space, and anything that you don't fit back here, you could also use for the back seats, for example. And this is kind of a nice add-on that can actually hide your luggage here in the back, which makes it fairly streamlined. Anything you put up here will of course start to obstruct your view, but again, more of the carbon composite that you can see around the exterior construction of this vehicle, and just a really nice glass piece here in the back. The rear brake lights are actually also LED on this car. You can also see the E-Drive, which is of course for the part-time all-wheel drive system, the i8 badging, the cool split here of the turn signals, and even those brake light LEDs. Your reverse lights integrated into the back here, and lots of our frozen gray metallic, in a cool styled rear diffuser here in the back. The exterior styling of this car is incredible, and it makes sense why these cars still get so much attention to this day. Next, let's take a look at the interior, which you access by pulling the doors up like this. That allows you to see your carbon composite construction, all of your warning labels and guides for the BMW as well. The other interesting part is just how big the door is. You can see it's fairly sizable there, and part of that, of course, is to help make it easier to get in, but it's also the fact that this car is actually a 2+2. If you go ahead and move the front seats forward, that gives you access to the rear seats here. Not necessarily meant to fit adults or most people for that matter. You could maybe fit small children back here, a dog, or even just use it for additional luggage space or things you'd like to have in the cabin with you during a road trip. It does also provide them with additional cup holders in addition to the front that you could use for whatever you want, while also having things like these nice little pockets at the base of the front seats. Moving into the interior, it looks just as futuristic on the inside here as it does on the outside. I particularly like these sports seats. They have a very forward-looking future look to them while still providing what you would expect from a performance seat. So they have this nice big headrest here here, contrast stitching. It's all perforated leather, as you can see here. But then you even have these side bolsters to hold you in place with sporty driving, and even some leg bolsters as well. The important part is these seats are also heated and power adjustable for both the driver and the passenger side on this particular car. And the steering column itself can also easily be adjusted for the perfect fitment on the inside of your BMW i8. Now, the harder part, given the way that the door sill and stuff is actually designed in this car, is how does one get into this car? Well, the best way to do it really is to put one leg in, and then you just kind of drop your butt into the back of the car, and then you've successfully climbed in. And then to close the door, you simply grab this very helpful handle here and pull the door down, which is not a difficult task. The cool part is this is the electronic release for the door, and it's shaped like the i8. You also get lock and unlock buttons, your Harman Kardon sound system in the door and throughout the car. You also have your locking gas cap controls, power mirror adjustments, power windows, and even a rear hatch button back here. With that, this is what you get on the inside of the car. You start it via the start-stop button in the center of the car, and then everything comes to life. And there's a lot of cool stuff to look at here. You might think there are just these two basic displays at first, and it can be hard to see on camera, but there's also a heads-up display, which is very clear and crisp and doesn't just show your speed, but in fact has all sorts of helpful things like speed limit sign recognition, but also shows you a variety of other information as well. Now, diving right into it, the steering wheel, very, very cool steering wheel. It has some paddle shifters as well integrated into it for sporty manual driving. You also have your cruise controls here on the left, and then on the right you have your volume adjustments, your phone controls, and then even your adjustments for the heads-up display, so you can actually rotate through some of the information that's currently being displayed in front of the car, making it about as helpful as possible, really. Over here on the left you have your headlight controls, your dimming functions, your BMW stocks for things like your turn signal and even your wiper controls, and then your main digital screen here. This screen is fun. Obviously, it has both your speed limit recommendations, as you would see here with the speed limit signs as well, but it also has your hybrid information here on the right side for how the car is actually performing, with things like your gas and battery controls at the bottom. And currently our battery is depleted, but fun fact, in the sport mode, those regenerative brakes, you can actually quickly charge that up with just a bit of sporty driving in some canyon roads. And then finally here in the bottom left, you can also see the mileage, in this case just 22,844 original miles. And on the right side, you have your range along with other vehicle information. Over here in the center, we have our main infotainment screen. That is what you'll find right here. This can actually quickly be adjusted through this control panel here. You may be familiar with this already. And you can just kind of scroll through everything that's available in this car. It includes things like navigation, all of your radio controls, all of which is actually plumbed through that Harman Kardon sound system that is also found in the car, and of course is very, very helpful. As you move further down, you have lots of physical buttons in this car, things like your hazards, of course some of your additional parking sensors. Note the really interesting design inlays and how the vents here in the center, but then also on the side for the passenger. Then below that, of course, all of this is going to be radio control, including the power button for your actual radio system. And then below that is our automatic dual zone climate control, which means you can have either synced up or independent adjustments for the driver and the passenger side in terms of the actual temperature adjustments for things like your climate controls, your air conditioning, your heat, etc. And then both the driver and passenger each get their separate 3 adjustable heated seat controls as well. Moving down to the middle, this is where things get more exciting. Obviously, this is sort of the powertrain section. You can see our electronic parking brake here on the side, but perhaps more importantly, our shifter here in the middle. You have the unlock button here on the side. This is essentially an early version that's going to be similar to a lot of what BMW's been using for a while. The button on the side will allow you to put the car into drive just by pushing it back like that. You can put it in reverse by pushing it forward, which will also bring up your backup camera, and then you put it into park via the button here at the top. But that's not all. It also has a sport mode. First, put the vehicle in drive, and then you can flick it over into sport, which will also allow you to manually shift the car, and everything turns red to be nice, aggressive, and sporty while driving. It even changes what information it shows you now with a tack on the right instead of your hybrid powertrain information. But it gets even more interesting. Here on the left, you'll notice additional drive modes, both a comfort mode and an eco mode. Currently, the shifter is off to the left in sport, but if we push the Eco Pro mode, something cool happens. the shifter physically moves itself out of the sport mode into drive and can now be in the eco mode. I have never seen a car physically move your shifter like that. That might be an exclusive feature for the BMW i8, but you also have the comfort feature here as well. And of course, all of that will adjust the drivetrain accordingly for the best characteristics. You also have eDrive, which, as the name implies, of course, is going to be more so focused on the electronic nature of the vehicle. You also have traction control, and then you even have your camera button, which is nice because that can pull up things like your front camera that's available in this vehicle, just to add a little bit of front view. Let's say if you're in a parking lot, whatever the case is. And you also have your parking sensors over here. And then you also have additional storage and plugins for your aux, a cup holder here in the middle, and then additional storage, and then those cup holders we talked about there in the back. Up top here, you actually have a cool headliner. You have these sun visors, of course oriented with being lightweight, and you have your lights here in the center along with your SOS settings. The interior is pretty cool for the car. It has almost like a simplistic look while having plenty of technology. I would say it doesn't feel that dated, especially by modern standards, and I'm surprised to see just how much everything is that you have in here. It's everything that you would want without being too overbearing, with no technologies that feel old by any means, and having what you would want for a luxurious sports car, let's say, and having some of the standard BMW attributes like the security light here in the rear view mirror. Pretty interesting. All right, let's go ahead and punch it. You know what I think is most impressive about this car? It is just deceptively fast. You know, like I said earlier, on paper, I think the specs can be a little bit deceptive for this car, but it's the combination of everything. It's the way that the powertrain, in combined with the construction, the suspension, and the all-wheel drive of this car is really what makes it so special. And that's why this car is way faster than a lot of people would lead you to believe. Like I said earlier, this car is faster than cars that have over 100 more horsepower than the BMW i8. It just is so efficient. It's the package that makes this car so special. Once you're actually inside, the driving experience is awesome. You can probably hear a lot of the audible feedback from the car. The car actually sounds fantastic as you're driving it. You get all sorts of, obviously some noise is pumped in through speakers on the inside of the car, and the other bit is of course that 3-cylinder engine that sits behind you in the back of the vehicle. And I'm surprised by how good it sounds, I guess. You know, I guess there's not a lot of 3-cylinders out there, period, to compare it to, but it's interesting, you know, to drive nonetheless. It certainly feels like a unique driving experience. The actual driver's position is also very cool. You can kind of see the front fenders and the way that they dive down. You're very low in the car, but you also get the cool technology of the heads-up display. And then even the gauge cluster feels very easy to read as it's right in front of you. The steering itself feels nicely weighted, something that BMW is of course kind of famous for to some extent. And so they integrated a lot of that stuff into this car as well. And so that helps a lot with a lot of the enjoyment. The other fun part, I think, is the noise. As much as, you know, we kind of tend to veer away from the pumped-in noise, it sounds fantastic in this car. It makes it a lot of fun to drive. It's those things, the acceleration in combination with, of course, the way the car sounds, that makes this car a lot of fun. From stop, this car accelerates unbelievably hard. You can tell why this car beats so many cars, specifically off the line. That all-wheel drive is so helpful, and it saves a lot of weight over traditional all-wheel drive setups because it doesn't have all the extra drive shafts and differentials that are required. Instead, it opted for the hybrid system that delivers much more power more efficiently in terms of just raw performance data. And so again, that's where all that comes in. The seats themselves, I find to be very, very comfortable. You of course have nice cold AC. You also just get a cool visible perspective. To some extent, it feels like what you would almost imagine it's like to drive something out of Tron would be the best comparison, I think, for just the futuristic nature of this car, the fun lighting and everything that goes into it. It really does stand out. This is something that once you drive it, that's where you really start to appreciate this car. Because I can tell you all sorts of stuff and specs, and as I said earlier, I don't think the specs on paper do this car justice, because the combined package and what you get from driving and using the car, that's the real rewarding factor. This is something that so often people will come up and talk to you about it. It doesn't matter that this car is already a couple years old at this point for what the newest BMW i8 is. This car looks insane, especially on the road. It's a spaceship. This is, in all truth, it's a science project from BMW. Most companies would have never put this into production, and yet here it is. And so this is your opportunity to own a very special car. It has cool technology, but obviously for all these cars to still be running around, you know, it's a very well thought out hybrid system. So well thought out, in fact, that it's kind of the standard. I mentioned earlier that the system used in this, the separate powertrain and separate electric motors, is a system that's still used today by other manufacturers. So BMW just got it right the first time around when they designed the BMW i8. Now with that, that's essentially a look at driving this car. It's incredibly cool. It's surprisingly fuel efficient, but also fast. It's fun to drive. It sounds great on the inside, and it looks fantastic. This is something that I don't think you would ever get bored of owning. And fortunately, if you want to buy one, this one is for sale. It features 22,000 original miles, and it was actually owned by the owner of a BMW specialty shop here in Scottsdale, Arizona. So you can be assured that, of course, the maintenance history is all very well gone through, very well documented as well for this particular car. A nice, beautiful, low-mileage example, the Giga World model, so you've got the extra features, and also finished in the very cool Protonic Metallic Blue, kind of all of the best of everything, if you will, for this particular car. It's going to be harder and harder to find nicer examples of these, and I think this is really a special one. So if you're in the market, you can find this car for sale. It's heading up for auction on Bring a Trailer, where it will be selling with no reserve as offered from Casio Motors. With that, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it and could leave me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. And of course, get subscribed so you don't miss out on future content like this. With that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.